All right, good morning. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. Can you facilitate roll call, please?
Yes. Committee Member Alvarez?
Present.
Committee Member Rogers is absent, and Chair Krupke.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no remote participation. Any announcements?
Excuse me, would you like me to do the interpretation announcement?
Yes, please.
Okay. La reunión de hoy va a tener servicios de interpretación simultánea en español. Para acceder al servicio de interpretación o al canal de interpretación, ustedes pueden ver en la parte de abajo de su pantalla de Zoom un icono del globo terráqueo. Pueden hacer clic en ese icono para acceder y entonces elegir el idioma Spanish o español. Si ustedes están en un teléfono celular o una tableta, verán 3 puntitos en la parte superior o inferior derecha de su pantalla. Pueden hacer clic allí, encontrarán el acceso a interpretación y hagan clic en el idioma Spanish o español y después hagan clic en Done o Listo. Gracias. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on to approval of minutes, the October 15th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Any amendments to make to those? Seeing none, we will adopt those as presented. We'll move on to public comment on non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for anybody in the room to say anything under the purview of public safety that is not agendized. Seeing nobody move towards the lecterns, we will move past that. On to new business. Item 6.1, Drone as First Responder Program. Take it away.
Morning, Chair Krupke and Councilmember Alvarez. I'm John Cregan, our Chief of Police here in the city of Santa Rosa, and brought today Lieutenant Josh Ludke, who runs and manages our real-time crime center and is our department's subject matter expert on our drone as first responder proposal. And I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Ludke.
Hello, good morning. Everybody hear me okay? Like Chief Cregan said, my name is Josh Ludke. I'm a lieutenant center of the police department. I oversee our traffic bureau and also oversee our real-time crime center project. What we'd like to do today is introduce our Drone as a First Responder program. As preparation for this program, we've done some research with companies that you okay?
Yeah, we're just connecting the PowerPoint stuff. Show
All right, you want to take a pause for a second or two while we do this?
Great, thank you. As I was saying, as part of our preparation for presenting this program, we've done a lot of research with some vendors and companies with drone as first responder solutions, as well as speaking with a number of public safety agencies that have employed or are in the process of deploying drone as first responder programs. In addition, we've reached out for feedback into our community. We recently had a community meeting with over 30 members who voiced their concerns, and we were able to provide some information about drone as first responder programs. And the goal is to build a drone as a first responder program that benefits the needs of our community. So that's some of the things that we've done thus far in in presenting this program. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what drone as a first responder is. So I will refer to drone as a first responder as DFR through most of the presentation. So drone as a first responder is essentially a system that allows drones to be dispatched immediately to emergency calls. The DFR was developed for public safety officials, most importantly to reduce response times and to give better situational status to calls for service and emergencies. There's some key differences between traditional drone programs and a drone as a first responder program. Santa Rosa Police Department has had a drone program since 2018. In our drone program, we currently have 5 drones that we deploy for different situations, calls for service, such as finding missing people, for situational awareness, also for processing scenes. When we have crime scenes or traffic accidents, we can deploy drones to quickly assess, measure, and process crime scenes. Some of the differences and limitations to the drone program that we currently have and drone as first responder program is that those drones are limited to the flight time. They're limited to the amount of situational status that they can provide. So in those situations, a drone pilot or the drone spotter is able to access that information, but they have to deploy that information through either the radio or other means in order to get that information out to either responding officers or dispatches. That means that they don't see real time what the pilot is seeing. So, as I mentioned before, some of the traditional uses for drones, we use them for pre-planned operations like tactical SWAT deployments, search and rescue evidence collection, but they're not suited for real-time sensitivity. DFR are immediately deployed to emergency call for service, and they allow a pilot or a drone to be on scene usually within 2 minutes or under from the time that the drone is deployed. So the DFR pilot can be a dispatcher, it can be a police officer, it could be a public safety personnel, a real-time crime center specialist, and they are able to fly and deploy the drone as needed. That information is also transmitted to computer screens that can be viewed in dispatch. It can be viewed in our real-time crime center. It can be given to officers on their phones or on their MDCs so that they can see real-time the situational status of the call that they're going to. So kind of the workflow in the DFR process is an emergency call is received, such as a 911 call. The drone is launched from a strategic location. The drone is remotely operated, providing a live aerial feed to officers, dispatchers, and supervisors. And then that real-time data helps first responders make decisions before arriving on scene to ensure they're better prepared and to take action. Also, that we can make sure that we're deploying the right amount of resources and the right types of resources to the calls for service before that either an officer is deployed or they get there. So as I mentioned before, one of the core benefits of a DFR is resource management. The drone pilot and operators can assess emergency information and make real-time decisions even before officers are deployed or public safety officials are deployed and make real-time decisions. Some examples is for a mental health call, a drone might identify that no crime is occurring or that a police officer is not necessarily needed for that call. We can then deploy alternate resources such as in-response teams, medical teams, and so on and so forth. Also, we can make sure that we send the right amount of officers to the right location and the right amount of resources are sent. DFR is a game changer for assessing natural disasters and being deployed for natural disasters. As we all know here, we've had our share of natural disasters. Being deployed for situational awareness to help not just our police department, but our fire department and other public safety agencies to be able to assess the scene and assess the situation prior to deployment can be a game changer. Also for disaster assessment, for assessing flood damage, assessing traffic issues, for evacuations and so on and so forth. assessing fires, the speed of fires, the movement of a fire, so that we can accurately deploy resources, evacuate people efficiently, and make sure the proper notifications are made. So resource reductions and savings that a DFR can provide. As I mentioned before, a number of California agencies have initiated DFR programs and are in the process of. Countrywide, there are also many other DFR programs that are in progress or in working. So in 2022, one Northern California police agency, they fielded 177 and some change calls for service. Of that number, 45,000 calls required an officer response. 5,153 calls were handled by sending a police drone, equaling about 11% reduction in calls first responders needed to respond to in that first year. That same agency has increased that number to almost 22% annually. So agencies who have implemented DFR programs have reported anywhere from 11 to 22 or more reduction in requiring an officer response. What that translates to, obviously, is that better efficiency of resources. Public safety officials, police that aren't having to respond to calls that aren't necessary, allows them to be available for other calls for service, allows them to stay in their beat, and allows better service to our communities. Funding sources for DFR programs are state and federal funded grants. We are already looking into a number of grants that fund DFR programs. And this DFR program would be fully funded by non-general fund budgets. So the types of calls that DFR responds to: organized retail theft, assaults, sideshows, suspicious people, missing people at risk, reckless driving, collisions with injury, traffic hazards, hazmats, dispensary burglaries and robberies, natural disasters such as earthquakes, fires, and floods, which I mentioned before, armed subjects, and pursuits. Many of the crime trends that we experience here and statewide, it relies on criminals to be able to commit crimes and quickly leave an area prior to police response. That's particularly noticeable in our organized retail theft situations, where groups of people victimize a business or a store or able to leave very quickly. Currently, our response times in Santa Rosa for Priority 1 calls prior to this year was about 7 minutes. We've since been able to reduce those response times to about 6 minutes and 31 seconds for Priority 1 calls. However, with a drone as a first responder program, we could reach most calls, Priority 1 calls, within 2 minutes or under. So that's a huge reduction in response times and critical for resolving crime trends such as organized retail thefts, sideshows, burglaries, robberies, and so on, as I mentioned before. That relates also to higher clearance rates, better arrest rates, and just overall better service and efficiency of our resources. So there's some examples of everyday DFR uses that we would deploy to. Resource allocation, as I mentioned, was a big benefit. DFR can respond to a traffic accident and determine that there are no injuries and doesn't either require an officer response or that the scene is safe. It also allows us to assess roadways to see if there's blockages, damages, preventing people to get there, better to give information to other responding agencies like fire and medical to provide best routes. Also give response to be able to message out to our community to avoid certain areas based on the situational status that we gain from a drone being on scene within a very short amount of time. So again, another example, pre-arrival assessment is very important. DFR would be able to arrive to a 911 call and determine that a threat appeared to be a false alarm and better equipping responders and be able to de-escalate the situation. In this particular slide, this is from an incident that happened on the East Coast where a man was reported with a rifle. Basically, during that incident, a mall, several schools were shut down, a huge area was shut down. all to find out that this person was carrying an umbrella. So imagine the resource management that it took to close all those areas, to get public safety officials into an area, and also just to be able to de-escalate this situation. With a drone as a first responder, a drone can respond quickly with their camera systems, be able to accurately assess the situation and provide that information to dispatchers and to officers that are coming into the area and potentially avoid a disaster. So why DFR protects the whole community? Again, as I mentioned, one of the key areas is faster response times, responding and being on scene and providing information real time within 2 minutes or under to most situations. Enhanced safety provides critical information to first responders about what the situation is, how it's transpiring, where suspects might be located. Another phenomenon that we've experienced throughout the country and even here locally are swatting calls. So some of the situations where it would be applicable is to be able to send a drone very quickly to a situation that we could potentially either rule out or better assess a situation that could be a swatting call that would prevent large shutdowns of areas, resource suck to other areas and other things. And so, and then the flip side of that coin obviously would be an active shooter situation where the opposite, where an incident is actually occurring. A drone as a first responder responding into that short amount of time, we would be able to better deploy our resources, to better make perimeters, to better deploy evacuations, and so on and so forth. So the situational awareness is a tremendous enhancement of safety to our community and to our police officers. Efficient use of resources, I mentioned before, there is a reduction in resource deployment based on drone as first responder programs across our country. We continue to evaluate those things. I believe that drone as first responder program would also create better efficiency in Santa Rosa and also be able to more accurately deploy our resources. Cost effectiveness. It reduces the need for expensive helicopter deployment. One of the things is that a drone as a first responder does not do everything that a helicopter program does. Obviously, it does not drop things off. Payload drops are not common. We can't rescue people from cliffs. However, we can do a lot of the other things with the camera systems and situational awareness that our local sheriff's department provides with their Henry One for a very fraction of the cost. Also, the cost of most DFR programs that we have looked at are less than the salary and benefits of one officer per year. So with our growing community and growing size of our city, leveraging our technology such as a DFR that can provide better service to our community is a force multiplier for our agency and other public safety agencies that are not growing in size at the same speed in which our city is. Community trust is a very big focus of DFR program. We understand that it is a important component in this community and every community. Focus on real-time emergencies and quick response and not surveillance. So what a DFR program is not. A DFR program is not a random surveillance. DFR operations are strictly tied to emergency calls for service, not routine patrols. So what that means is a deployment of a drone would be based on a call for service, not just randomly patrolling those areas. Privacy concerns. So there's clear operational guidelines that ensure drones are not used for surveillance. Again, I mentioned that we have had a drone policy since 2018, which addresses many of those privacy concerns. A DFR program for us would include an additional policy to include all DFR operations. The DFR programs that we have researched do not include technologies such as predictive policing technology, such as facial recognition or AI technologies. They don't incorporate listening devices. There are companies that have listening or recording options. The drone program that we are looking at does not have that capability, and part of the reason is to prevent the perception of listening in and listening devices for this program. So community trust, obviously, the DFR program relies on trust from our community, full transparency about our flights for DFR programs are integrated into a public-facing dashboard. So what that essentially means is that each flight is recorded with information about the flight itself, the call for service that it was attached to, the flight path, and other notes. A dashboard that also includes how many types and calls for service that we had that the DFR responded to. A number of the programs and the programs that we are interested in all have a public-facing dashboard, which we would employ in this particular program as well. And that obviously would be publicly available internet-based access. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Questions from the dais?
Good morning, all.
Morning.
Are there any ACLU hurdles that we've encountered or other entities, agencies have encountered?
So public trust and privacy concerns are always a concern, and they have been so a concern in the other agencies that I've talked to. It's also on the forefront of the vendors' minds when they're either developing these technologies and other things. So how we try to address that is certainly through policy, to making sure that these are deployed in a responsible way and that it's transparent, that we have policies to address those things, and that also that we spend time speaking with our community to get the concerns of the community so that we can address them through policy and through the program that we hopefully eventually select.
And you did mention the strategic locations where they're being launched. Is this one single location throughout the city of Santa Rosa, or is it dependent on where the event is happening?
So depending on the vendor, there's a number of vendors with different solutions. Some of the vendors require multiple drones that are placed strategically throughout the city. The drone programs that we're most interested in are, they refer to as drone as in a box, where it's one location. We believe that one drone centrally located in our city could handle the response to all parts of our city within the time frame that we're talking about. Central location could be somewhere downtown, even to the police department or a fire station, and the drone would deploy from that location each time. So essentially how that would work would be that the drone at the location, let's say, would be at the police department. A call for service would happen. The drone would automatically deploy from that location. It would fly to the location of the call. The pilot would then be able to operate that once it gets to the call. The flight can go for about 40 minutes. Once the battery gets low, that drone deploys back to its docking station, where a robot arm replaces the battery and relaunches the drone within about 60 seconds.
Well, you answered the question of flight time, 40 minutes.
About 40 minutes, yes. For most of the drone solutions, 40 minutes is about average. That can also depend on conditions like wind and other things. However, most of these drones are very good and can operate in winds up to 35 miles an hour and other adverse conditions, smoke, nighttime, fog, and other things, so that we don't have a drone that's grounded. We want to make sure that we have a solution that we're able to deploy frequently and regularly and independently.
And lastly, one of the concerns is not so much how the current council or how our current police chief utilizes the tools and technology that are afforded to us. It's about what happens 20 years down the line. And I'm wondering if there's any language in the in the drone program that impedes code enforcement, for example, to ever have access to drones and surveillance being the concern?
So I understand your question.
Well, what would stop code enforcement in the future from having access to this program?
Well, I would say that our policy would dictate that this particular drone is overseen solely by the police department. There are many opportunities for use for other parts of the city that could access the benefits of the drone. Fire department, for example. We could provide links for them for calls for service, but they would be governed under the same policy of our deployment, that it was strictly used for calls for service and et cetera. And those would be accountable through our policy. They would also be accountable through our public-facing dashboard and so on.
I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions. From the way that you're speaking, when you say the programs that we're looking at, you haven't made a decision as to which one you prefer. So as I ask these questions, just if you can speak generally, that'd be great. Flight time 40 minutes, what's the range if we have one centrally located? Will it be able to reach all parts of the city?
Yes, it would be able to reach all parts of the city, and it would be able to reach all parts of the city if it was centrally located and have a flight time of about 40 minutes. So there are other cities that are similar size. For example, Elk Grove has a similar size city, but geographically they're much longer, so they have multiple drones so that they can also have better coverage. But also their goal was to be able to reach any call within under a minute. So they have employed a drone program and expanded on it. So, and that's true with many agencies in California. There are a number of vendors and agencies that, based on the geography, based on the needs of the community, that each vendor is better suited. So those are the things that we're considering as we're looking at vendors, that what best suits our community, what best supports our geography, what best supports all the agencies in our city, not just the police department. And so those are some of the considerations that we're
Okay. With that, have we had any discussions, or have you had any discussions with the sheriff's office? Is there, because limiting it, I mean, if we have, for example, a live shooter just outside of city limits, I could see where this would be valuable in an unincorporated county as a mutual aid type of situation. Have you had those conversations?
We have had some conversations with other agencies who are very interested in this type of program, or this program. In this program, we're also able to provide links for folks. So, for example, if the sheriff's department had an incident that was outside the city, we could deploy that drone. However, based on the distance, the flight times might be reduced because it has to have the time to be able to come back and return and swap a battery out at that central location. But we certainly can provide that service to other agencies, both law enforcement and non-law enforcement, for emergency management and other things. It's just that it may reduce the amount of time in the air and that we can stay, depending on how far we have to travel.
Okay. Are there any issues with the FAA and the airport?
So all of these drone companies, and a number of ones that we have looked at, they provide the service of the assisting with FAA clearances. This technology that we're looking at is integrated with FAA radar. So what happens is, if a drone is deployed and a competing aircraft is in the area, the drone automatically detects that and drops within a safe distance until that's gone, and then redeploys up. So it's fully integrated with GPS and with FAA compliance, and with FAA radar.
Great. Of the ones you're looking at, where are they made, both the hardware and the software?
So that's a big transition that's happening not just with the company that we are looking at, or several companies that we're looking at. As we know that there's legislation that's up and coming about foreign-made drone and technology. Many of the companies are switching over to American-made drones, or have the option to purchase American-made drones. The technology, as far as the camera systems, the GPS, the information systems, are USA made and separate from the flying the flying technology. So that's to say that some of the drones that are not American made are being equipped with American made technology, but they're trying to phase some of those out, and there are options to replace those with American made drones as well. So that's something that we've considered as well. And one of the big reasons for that is that many funding sources in the form of grants don't allow for non-American-made drones or technology. So that's something that we're also interested in pursuing.
Okay, great. In terms of staffing, you said that a pilot could be a number of positions. Would there be a dedicated person each shift, and would that require additional staffing, and are they required to get additional training?
There's additional training. However, the companies that provide these solutions, they're mostly all-inclusive. So that includes a training program for a number of staff. So that would include our dispatchers, our officers, real-time crime center personnel potentially, and others. So the answer would be yes, there would be a dedicated staff that would be involved in the flying and piloting, but it wouldn't necessarily be additional staff hired specifically for that. It would be an additional duty that would be part of what they're already doing.
Okay. You mentioned there's no listening capabilities on the ones that you're looking at. Does that mean there'd be no ability to interact with subjects on the ground in response? Like, you couldn't hear what they're saying back to you if you're saying something over a loudspeaker to them?
These particular drone solutions that we're looking at don't have that capability. They can shine lights and things like that, but they don't have payload drops. The FAA severely limits payload drops, and they're not as frequent as one might think. Military-grade drones do have that ability and are being utilized, but these are not the same. These drones also fly at a higher level, so 400 feet they're flying at. So they're different than our other drone programs where they're dropping down low and are basically interacting. So being able to speak through, record through, that's not the primary purpose. These drones rely mainly on the camera systems to provide real-time information in the form of video and other information. So listening is not incorporated in that, and that's not part of the solutions that we're looking at.
Okay. And then my last question is, with the footage, what's the accessibility to that? What are the internal requirements for that? Is it similar to body-worn cameras or something different?
Yeah, so there are some similarities. There's the ability, so once the drone goes on scene, then the recording can begin. Any recording that's captured as a result of a call would be captured and downloaded as evidence, and would be retained under our policy for evidence. Other recordings would be subject to our retention policies and others, and purged after a certain amount of time. But the video is maintained under all of our other policies. So, for example, if it was a use of force incident that fell under AB 1421, that would be accessible through that avenue. If it was evidence, it would be accessible through that avenue. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? All right, we're going to go ahead and go to public comment on this item. If you have any questions on item 6.1, Drone as First Responders Program, please go to one of the lecterns, and you will have 3 minutes to say what you would like. On the right lectern.
Chair Okrepke, members of the Public Safety Subcommittee, Chief Cregan, my name's Jim Duffy. I'm an oversight practitioner based in Rohnert Park. While I serve as the vice chair of the Criminal Justice Committee of the NAACP, and I'm a chapter leader with Sonoma County ACLU, my comments don't reflect the positions of either of those organizations. However, I do want to point out ACLU sent you guys a detailed letter this morning, and NAACP's positions were well covered in the Press Democrat. And it is safe to say neither organization supports moving forward with increased kinds of surveillance in Santa Rosa until you do a surveillance technology ordinance. And this is something I've been emailing and talking with Chief Cregan about this since 2022. We've met with Chair Okrepke going back over a year. About a year ago, we had a long sit down with you, and I've had a couple chats with Member Alvarez over the years at various events, trying to move us forward so that we are not sleepwalking our way into mass surveillance, unconstitutional surveillance in Santa Rosa. And I know that we're trying to put these programs, and now I'm back talking just for me. I know we're trying to put these programs in to keep us all safer, and I commend Chief Cregan for doing that, for using the latest technologies as a force multiplier. But we've got to put in guardrails, because we're going to have unintended consequences. Even if we put in the surveillance technology ordinance, we could have unintended consequences. But if we are just going to throw caution to the wind, we're kind of begging for bad things to happen. My question also is, where is the real-time crime center policies according to the Press Democrat article that was out last week? We are already operating a real-time crime center, but when I look online, I cannot see any policies that talk about that. Talking about these new drones, we really should see the proposed additional drone policy before you authorize purchase of the drones, because you want to make sure that if you're going to spend money for something, that you like how it's set up to be used. Are these drones going to be capturing footage from the moment they take flight to the moment they hit the area where the call is indicating is needed? If so, that's a massive amount of data that's being collected, and if that is fed into the real-time crime center, it's going to result in large violation of privacy for the citizens of Santa Rosa. Also, I have questions on data retention and sharing with ICE and Trump and everything that's going on. You know, is this going to put our undocumented community at risk? Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Annette Arnold. I'm a resident of Santa Rosa, and I would just like to say I support this program. I think our police department needs help and resources. They're understaffed, as they have been for years, and they're doing the best job they can to support our city. I think having a resource like this can really save money, it can save time, and it can save lives. And I think we need things like this as long as we do have some kind of policy about surveillance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to give public comment on this item? Seeing nobody else, we'll bring it back. If I could have Lieutenant and Chief address some of the questions. First and foremost, can you address our Chief, our policy when it comes to interaction with immigration authorities?
Yeah, and that's a really hot topic right now, and it's something we discussed at our mayor's town hall with the vice mayor last night. And so we have a very specific policy about separating the duties of federal immigration and any federal resources and local law enforcement. So our current policies that we have with our automatic license plate readers, the same with our public surveillance policy, prohibits of us sharing that information specifically with ICE, and we would continue to do that with the Drone as First Responder program, that under no way will Santa Rosa police officers participate participate in any type of immigration enforcement, including gathering intelligence, surveillance, detaining people solely on immigration status, and that will be built in to our drone as first responders policy. And it's important for me as chief to not put the cart before the horse and build the policy before we have approval from our council leaders and leaders for the city. But we're already working behind the scenes to look what these policies look like, looking at other departments to be able to draft them. And currently we have comprehensive policies that are available online on our public surveillance policy, our automatic license plate policies, and our body worn camera that talks about our retention with those. And so we would build out, and we also have a drone, or just a drone policy right now for our existing drones. So those are all covered with that. So we would create, as Lieutenant Ludke talked about, we would create a new drone as first responders policy if this program was approved. And we are right now launching a specific policy on our real-time crime center that was brought up from the community, and that's going to be posted soon. That kind of, it basically is bringing all these other policies under one, incorporating that. But right now, each one, there's individual policies addressing all of the technology that's being used in our real-time crime center.
Thanks, Chief. Lieutenant Ludke, I believe you covered it kind of in passing of when recording starts. Can you just cover that again more specifically?
I'm sorry. In two of the companies that we've researched, there's the option to record upon launch or record upon arrival. So when the drone launches, for example, the information is broadcasted to a screen, and at the point the operator manually starts recording that. So the drone flies straight up to about 400 feet or 400 feet above the highest building, and then it flies straight to the area. So it's not flying or zoomed in on an area until it gets to the location where the call is, and then at that point the camera zooms in and the recording begins.
All right, thank you very much. We'll bring it back. Any final questions or comments? All right. I think for me, when it comes to this program, I'm in favor of it. We've received a lot of feedback, both positive and negative, but a majority of it positive. I do think that the policies that you're creating and would provide the guardrails that are needed based on the answers that you're giving me now. Especially, I would have a strong preference for recording on arrival, because if you're 400 feet above, there's really nothing you can see anyways, and no reason to record. I have a very strong preference for U.S. made parts. So if that's an option, I would very much lean that way. And then I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I'm very much in support for non-general fund impact with this program. For me, I see the benefits of this. One thing I didn't ask, but I sort of presumed it, but I know what that always means is with reduction in the need for response to priority 1 calls, I would assume that there would be a faster response time for priority 2 and 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and I think the more people we're able to serve as our first responders is great, and I think the police usage of this is kind of overshadowing the usage for fire. And the ability for our fire department to get eyes on incidents before they arrive instead of just figuring it out when they get there. So for me, I'm in favor of this, and I'm okay with it moving forward. And with that,
you made all the great points, and the reality is there's a lot of tools that are afforded to our police department that really do benefit the security of our residents. But I do have the concern of the ACLU and the future use of the program 10, 20 years down the line, and that remains a concern.
All right, and with that, we will move on from this item and go to item 6.2. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item 6.2, Santa Rosa Police Department Strategic Plan.
All right, thanks, Chair Krepke, and I'll continue this presentation, Chief John Cregan. This is just going to be a high-level overview of our new strategic plan that we're just launching and steps about how the public can publicly access our strategic plan that we're going to go through. And we just developed and launched just here at the beginning of the year our new 5-year plan going from calendar years 2025 through 2029. And we'll go through some of the steps about how we got community input on this, how we developed this plan, and how we're for the first time publicly going to broadcast this plan so it's available for all of our community to be able to see what our plan for the future is. And we'll talk about, we have 6 primary goals, and under each one of those is a pretty robust 35 objectives under each one of those goals about where we're planning to go with the department to help meet some of our public safety needs for the next 5 years. So first, starting with this process, I've been through many strategic plan processes in my years in law enforcement and saw some highs and lows with those, but one of our focuses was getting more community input. So we developed and worked with a group who helped us develop our strategic plan, and we started by interviewing different stakeholders across our own internal department. So meeting with our different labor groups, meeting with both sworn and civilian staff, and we did a department-wide survey. So everyone in our department was able to get an anonymous survey where they could talk about things that they wanted to see me as chief for our leadership and what we were doing with our department, and that was really important to us. And a lot of the strategic plans that I've been a part of the past have done that. They focused very insular inside about what the department wants and what that, but we all know we can't meet the needs of our community about hearing their needs and incorporating those into our vision. So we also set up a couple opportunities for our community. We did a citywide survey. We had, I believe it was 945 community members who actually participated and took the survey, which we were happy to get that input. And it really gave us a cross-section of what people felt the police department were doing well. And on the other side, what are some areas that we need to really focus on and do a better job on. We also held a community meeting, so we did a lot of advertising for that on both radio, social media, through our council here. And we had over 65 community members who showed up in person for our strategic planning meeting. We heard a lot of their feedback, and we broke into small groups and were able to get them where maybe people felt more comfortable sharing some of their feedback, got a lot of information and used that. In that, and then we also were able to get input from my Chiefs Community Advisory Team, and these are 21 community members that represent, and they were picked independently by our city manager Smith through an application process, and they're not shy about giving me critical feedback on things that we could be doing better. And so we really packaged all that information together from our internal interviews, our internal survey, our community survey, our strategic planning meeting, our CCAT team, hearing input from our city leaders with that, and kind of shaping the future where we wanted to go with this. And out of all of that, we came up with 6 pillars that we're creating, and the pillars are outlined here. Fostering community safety and reducing crime. That's certainly something that we've seen with an uptick of gun violence with that, and that includes some of the traffic safety. Organizational excellence, like the Santa Rosa Police Department, I proudly talk to our team about, we set ourselves apart, and they're incredible agencies across California and across this nation, but there's something special about what we're doing here at the Santa Rosa Police Department, and we want to continue to empower that and build that up on our employees. Enhancing technology and innovation, that's one of those topics we're here today. That's going to be one of the pillars of my time as chief, is focusing on how do we be more efficient and more effective using technology. And the next one is organizational wellness. And study after study talks about that officers who are responding out in the field use less force, treat people with more respect when they're going out in a good mental health space, when they have the support that they have, and something that we're really having that upstream approach. And that's for our civilian employees as well, for the dispatcher handling the 911 call, from our records team who are greeting people in the lobby. If we treat our employees well and give them the resources they need, when they're faced with a lot of trauma in this job, they're going to serve our community better. Same thing with facility and equipment needs. There are a lot of equipment issues that we have and work through at the police department of needs, and we're certainly looking toward a long-term goal of what we do with our public safety building and working with all the other financial needs across the city of Santa Rosa. And our last one is community engagement. This is another pillar of getting out in our community, getting out to events, whether it be coffee with a talk, tacos with a cop, or other opportunities. And for us, we're saying it doesn't have to be just these one-off events. It needs needs to be every day that our patrol officers are getting out of their car, interacting with their community, doing foot patrols, whether it be downtown, whether it be neighborhood parks or neighborhood businesses, but getting out and going to those events. So I know we went through that really quickly, but just wanted to give a snapshot of those 6 goals with it, and then each one of those has a series of 5 to 8 objectives about how we're going to achieve those things. And then we have an internal dashboard. So the police department, we're going to have once a month our command staff team, we're going to bring this in our command staff meeting, and we're going to highlight what is the progress, what we're doing with this. We'll continue to keep our city leaders on our progress, and we're not just creating a plan that sits in a drawer somewhere. We're creating a plan that's action oriented, and we're going to start working toward really robust goals within 5 years of achieving all 35 of these objectives. And then the last thing for me, all the strategic plans I'm aware of, we've always kept internal at the police department, but that doesn't meet the needs of our community. So we have this on our website right now. So if you go to the Santa Rosa Police Department website, it's under the About Us tab, and it has the PDF of our entire strategic plan. Right here is a QR code for others that want to use that, and you bring it, it'll automatically just hyperlink to the page there. But we really want to continue to make sure our community is aware of it, of kind of see what our goals are, and then continue to provide feedback to me and our city leaders if there are areas that you think that we missed and that we can continue to improve, because this is always going to be an involving project with it, but it's something that I really feel strongly is going to help us lead forward, and at the end of the day that we're going to have a safer community, we're going to build more trust with our community, we're going to have our department personnel who feel more supported and are able to face some of the different traumas of this job like this. So really brief highlight, but continue to provide me any feedback when people have had a chance to spend more time diving through that. And I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? I don't think I have any questions right now, so we'll move on to public comment on this item. If there's anybody that would like to speak on the strategic plan for the police department, please do so. Move to one of the lecterns and do so now. Seeing nobody moving, we will close public comment and come back for final comments from the dais. I don't really have anything. I just want to point out, other than just 2 real quick comments, this is for, Chief, your leadership team, and everybody on down the line. One, the embracing of organizational wellness and personal wellness. Having spoken to you and to the fire chief, that in your lines of work that may not have been so well received even 5 years ago. And the fact that you're both embracing it and understanding, better mental health equals better first responders is phenomenal. So I'm glad to see that on there. And then community engagement, whether it's Tacos with a Cop and the chief, your efforts, or as you were explaining to me earlier, police officers just going door to businesses in their beats and introducing themselves, putting faces to the officers, and just that building of relationships. I think that's phenomenal. And then I know that there's other efforts, whether it be the substation in Roseland, in my colleague's district, which will help with that outreach. I think it's something that we should really be proud of. So thank you to you and your team and everybody on down the line. I appreciate it. And with that, we will close out the item and move on. There's no matters held in committee, so we'll move on to department reports. Chief.
Right, we'll keep the momentum rolling here. We're going to keep this brief, but we're just going to provide a quick little high-level overview of some of the statistics from the calendar year of 2024 and some of the efforts that we've been able to help reduce crime in Santa Rosa, and really proud of the work of the men and women of the Santa Rosa Police Department at all levels who've really contributed to this. So we saw a significant drop in homicides and shootings, and we're going to look at some of this data. Illegal firearm seizures up, and then sadly we saw a spike among juveniles possessing those illegal firearms. But we also saw injury collisions, and we'll talk about that, and fatal collisions up, and that's something that we're working to be able to put what resources we can put in that to drive down those injury collisions. And we really saw homeless-related calls for service down significantly, and that's a collaborative work with our housing and community services, with so many other team members who are coming together to help address that. But at the end of the day, you're seeing less police-related calls going toward homeless-related resources, and I think that's a plus for our community. So some of the key specifics of diving deeper into that. So we saw shooting-related incidents go down 52%. So in 2023, we saw 361 shootings that came in, were reported to our 911 dispatch center with it, and we saw that drop 52% to 173. So that's 186 less shootings reported to the police department. So that's something that we're really proud of. The firearm seizures up significantly. So we actually set the record for the history of Santa Rosa in 2023 with 259 illegal firearms seized off the streets, and we shattered that with going up with a 51% or increase here to 390 that we saw here. So a pretty significant jump in that. And in the ghost guns, when that comes up completed or repeatedly in our community, and the ghost guns are these 3D printed non-serialized firearms, otherwise referred to as privately manufactured firearms, but up 125%. So went from another department high of 55 ghost guns to 124. Homicides were down dramatically in the calendar year of 2024, 80%, went from 10 homicides to 2, and those are 2 tragic losses, but something that we're really happy with the progress in that. Homeless-related incidents, we talked around down 14%, and saw the priority 1 response time go all the way down from 6 minutes and 57 seconds to 6:31, and our goal is still to continue to get that under 3 minutes, or under 6 minutes, sorry, and that's how this technology is going to be, like the drone as first responder and other technology can help us doing that. Really focused on traffic safety. Over 23,000 traffic stops were completed by our officers last year. They wrote over 10,000 citations, and we're seeing some of the results of that. Of DUI, we were actually awarded by the Mothers Against Drug Driving of the Northern California Agency of the Year for our efforts on DUI enforcement, and we're seeing some of the results of that with DUI numbers down 21%. But in areas of growth, injury collisions up 19% and fatal collisions up a pretty remarkable 200%, of going from 2 fatal collisions to 6 fatal collisions in 2024. So it's something we need to work on, and we talk about that's not just with enforcement, but it's also with us working with our partners with engineering on our roadways and working with our partners with education in our community, and we're going to continue to make that a focus into 2025. The firearm, these are just a graph to show, but it's pretty visual of showing like what a remarkable increase we've seen over the years from 2016 up to 2024, and that we're seeing that steady increase of illegal firearms in the streets of Santa Rosa, and we're seeing that spill over to violence in our community. Same thing with ghost guns. If you look like just remarkably how much more accessible ghost guns have been over the last year, we go in 2016 with none seized, going all the way up to 124 this year, and it says each year stepping up and stepping up. Arrest involving firearms, you see here the breakdown in the orange there. It's talking about 30 juveniles in 2024 arrested carrying a firearm on the streets of Santa Rosa. So that's where we're really working closely with our partnerships at the Violence Prevention Partnership, with our schools, and really trying to educate our youth and the parents about some of the dangers of this, and hopefully see those numbers come down in 2025. Same thing, this is just seeing the months, and you see we always see spikes over the summer, but we also see some in the spring, so it just kind of breaks down a monthly comparison of when the firearms are being seized, but it's pretty consistent throughout the year with it. And then this would not happen without some of the work of the men and women of the Santa Rosa Police Department, and we're really seeing some of these specialty teams that our city council has invested in. We brought back our gang crimes team. Our gang crimes team actually seized 82 of those firearms came from our gang crimes detectives, with our special enforcement team that are going out there and helping with our priority 1 response times and being present out in our community. Our violent crimes team, which continues to have a homicide clearance rate over 90%, which is remarkable, and that really is helping bring closure to these families. That and our downtown enforcement team, and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had in our community about seeing the results of our downtown enforcement team, not only just downtown, but they spread throughout the city of Santa Rosa, addressing some of our quality of life issues and really helping some of our homeless subjects be able to get some of the services they need, and really working closely with Housing Community Services, the Violence Prevention Partnership, and our other citywide stakeholders with it. So we were powering through those, but just want to make sure those are available. And then also understand, like, we're starting off, and it was in the news today, we're starting off with a lot of violence in Santa Rosa. And fortunately, we've already had 5 reported homicides just so far this year. And that started off with a potential murder-suicide that we have on Monarch Heart earlier in the year. And then just this weekend with 2 homicides reported. But the common theme is firearms were used in all 3 of these incidents. And the more that firearms are readily accessible accessible, especially when we're seeing non-serialized firearms. We're seeing the violence used in that, and that's where we're working really closely to continue to address that. And it's going to continue to be an ongoing issue that we're going to continue to face as a city with it. But really proud of some of the progress, and we're going to continue to leverage technology and some of our other resources to continue that in 2025. I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thank you so much, Chief. I have a couple of questions. Can you just kind of expand on firearm seizures and ghost gun seizures? With it going up, is that more enforcement? Is that more out there? Is it a combination of the two?
We've been kind of diving deep in that, trying to see that. I think it's quite frankly a combination of certainly more enforcement of having dedicated teams like the gang crimes team, which is able to focus on that. The special enforcement team, our property crimes team too, has really seen a lot of that. You're seeing people who are burglarizing homes, businesses, stealing these firearms. So our property crime team actually got 97 of those 390 guns came from just that dedicated team. So these specialty teams have been really key to that. Also, our patrol officers are just doing an incredible job of weekend after weekend being out there. But at the end of the day, I think to your point, they're just more accessible than they ever were before. So we're seeing more youth being able to have access to them. So it's a combination of easy access, many loopholes on the federal law where you can get the ghost gun parts mailed to your home here in Santa Rosa. You can get a 3D printer. You can watch a YouTube video, and within 3 to 5 hours, depending upon your skill sets, using these videos, you can put together your own ghost gun and have it accessible. We're also seeing entrepreneurs here in Santa Rosa that are selling these firearms and making a profit for those, so they're more accessible for that. So we're really working with both our state and federal legislators on how we can close some of those loopholes and then continue with it of that we're not going to get our way just through enforcement, and that's where it's key working with the Violence Prevention Partnership, with our schools and others about the education of getting out there and talking to about these are the dangers, and it's not just of the social media status of flashing a ghost gun, but these are the dangers that you're going to get with this, and hopefully being able to register with some of our youth and their parents about that and start to be able to turn this needle in the right direction.
Thank you. And then one last question that just kind of came to mind. With collisions up and fatal collisions and stuff like that, have you had conversations with our Transportation and Public Works Director about safety measures that could be taken both strategically outside of enforcement that your officers see on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely, and we're really excited with the new relationship with our new TPW director, Dan Hennessy, and he's so focused on pedestrian, bicycle safety, and really brings a lot of creative ideas to the city. So we meet with him after fatal collisions and with his team, Rob Sprinkle, as well, and really looking at the engineering side of it, about what can be changes made with our roadway. And actually, just this morning before I came in here, I was at a grant meeting where we were discussing grant opportunities, and we were talking about potentially applying for a grant that puts in-car radar systems in all of our patrol vehicles, so they're out there more enforcing radar. But we also talked about an opportunity to partner with TPW about putting radar signs throughout the city, things like that we can do to partner with them. And really, it's got to be a collaborative effort. But with our director, Hennessy, we've really seen that collaboration, and I think that's going to help us to drive down some of these fatal collision numbers in our city.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to public comment. If there's anybody that would like to speak on the police department update, please move to one of the lecterns. Nobody's moving, so we'll close public comment on that. Bring it back. Any final comments? I have none either, so thank you very much, Chief. And with that, we'll move on to the next item, the fire department update with Chief Westrope.
Good morning, Chair Krepke, Vice Mayor Alvarez, City Manager, Mr. Counselor. Scott Westrope, Fire Chief of the City of Santa Rosa. Obviously, Chief McCallum's not here. I was not supposed to be available today, and that changed, so give Mike the day off. So real quick, just a quick update on the fire department. Sort of the format we've been following in these meetings. On our position control list, we're down from 169 FTE to 165 FTE. through the budget reduction process. We still have the 12 safer employees on the squads. In operations, we currently have 3 vacant positions. That's because we have an academy of 6 in progress at our training facility right now, so they're in their 3rd week this week, so they'll hit the floor in about another 3 weeks. We have 1 vacant position in response. One of the single role paramedics and in response moved over to suppression, so he's in the academy right now. We're currently in the recruitment process working with HR and the police department on filling that vacancy for the 24/7 model for in response. Fire prevention, we are at full staffing, and in fire administration, we're at full staffing, so all good news there. For fire station construction, Fire Station 5 is actually, I just was looking at the video, they're pouring the pad right now, so concrete's going into Station 5 as we speak. There is a typo here. It's not April of 2025, that would be great. It's actually April of 2026. So we're moving along very well on Fire Station 5. Fire Station 8, as Vice Mayor Alvarez knows, we did not a groundbreaking, but a opening ceremony for Fire Station 8 in the library at the end of last calendar year with a design build contractor and architect firm. There's no finite start or completion date yet, but that is well underway in the design phase of the process. As far as fleet goes, we currently still have 5 Type 1 fire engines on order, 4 out of the general fund and 1 is out of PSAP. Those have not hit the assembly line yet. We expect them to arrive later this year. We did have the 2 that were delivered and placed in service in December of last year. Picture here on the right of those engines, and that's what the next 5 will look like as well. The Type 6 engines, actually as of this morning, our team is back there in Wisconsin and completed the final inspection of those engines, and they're constructed so well there's not a lot of repairs or changes to make, so they will be on their way to Santa Rosa by the end of this week. And I can share some pictures with you. They're on my phone and the city manager has them, but I have some pictures but didn't have time to get them into this presentation. And we still have a ladder truck that's on order that will be delivered sometime in 2028. We're continuing to work through the process for the transport capable squads that were funded by the Public Safety and Prevention Sales Tax measure, but that process is still ongoing. And then just a real quick update on the squads. They're still running between 110 and 130 calls per week. So they're being very, very effective. The employees on both on the squads and on the engines and trucks really enjoy them. But at the next Public Safety Subcommittee, I'm going to bring back a pretty strong comparative analysis of response times as they're related to the squads implementation now that we have some data to back that up, and show how effective the squads are being on our day-to-day operations and how we can utilize them better. So I'll be bringing that back to you in our next meeting next quarter. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. Only question I have is, can you describe the difference between Type 1 and Type 6?
Absolutely. Sorry. A Type 1 fire engine is, I don't know how to do it now. Type 1 fire engine is what you see on a day-to-day basis. It's what we deploy, 500 gallons of water. Thank you for being smarter than me. So that's a Type 1 fire engine. Then we have Type 3 fire engines, which are the large wildland engines that you see, very typical to what CAL FIRE rolls. So engine 26 and engine 27 and engine 25 are all Type 3 engines of different types, different manufacturers, but they're four-wheel drive, pump and roll capable wildland firefighting engines. The Type 6 fire engine is a smaller, it's built on a Ford F550 chassis, so it's a smaller engine with a smaller pump, but they're very versatile and they're very agile, so they can get into smaller areas. And they're really becoming much more prolific in the wildland environment because of their versatility. So we currently have 1, and the next 2 that are going to be delivered in the next couple weeks will triple our capability for the Type 6 fire engines.
Thank you, Chief. With that, we'll move on to public comment on the fire department update. If there's anybody that has any public comments, please move to one of the lecterns. Nobody's moving. We will close public comment, bring it back for final comments. No, I don't have any final comments on this, so thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then with that, we will move on to item 9, which is adjournment, and we will adjourn at 10:09. Thank you.